Hey Zoe,
Hey, Alex.
how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Oh.
Ever since you joined the music committee, I feel like we're really on the same wavelength.
I think so too.
Yeah. Have you been thinking about that podcast idea we talked about?
As we're on the same wavelength, of course.
Yeah, awesome. I think it's a great idea. We just need someone to come on and to talk as like a guest.
As a guest, yeah. I've been thinking about that. And this guy, Coco Pops, I think?
Oh, you mean the drummer guy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Cyril.
Cyril. Yeah, he'd be a great guest. I'd
He'd
love
be
to have him
great.
on. It's really convenient because he's already here.
Hey guys,
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm
Fantastic.
great.
Now that you're here. We have Cyril here.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
Hi.
So, Cyril, man, I've known you for a while.
Mhm.
So, I know you're a drummer, you're French Lebanese, and you're a pretty cool dude to jam to, man. You got good taste in music.
Thank you.
But why don't tell us a little about yourself? How do you feel about music, about drumming, all of this stuff?
So as you said, I'm French Lebanese. I was born in Paris to Lebanese parents, and I moved to Dubai when I was 6 years old. And I started drumming very soon after my move there. I started drumming, I think I was 6.5 when my mom put me at drum school. I wanted to play the guitar because at the time that was like the cool instrument, right? You're a guitarist, and then she said, no, you should just try drumming, and I immediately loved it as soon as I got behind the set. So I love music to
Right,
answer
nice.
that question. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. That's so funny that you almost started with guitar, because I almost started with drums, actually. I always wanted a drum set from when I was like 7 or 8, and I would ask my parents. My mom was like, yeah, we could get a drum set. My dad was like, are you crazy? Like, no, the noise that would make.
Too much sound.
Yeah, no, so I got guitar.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. So, and you're learning guitar now, right, as well?
Guitar
Love
has
that.
always super intimidated me for the longest time. Everything that has to do with scales and notes, I just don't understand it. I felt like my ear was awful. Like I could never tell the difference between two notes, And it would just play it off like, yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about, but I had no clue.
Yeah, I guess I
Think
guess that's the
everyone
advantage of
recognizes that.
drums is that you don't need to know that much about like the theory. I
Um,
mean, aside from rhythm, of
yeah,
course.
it's different
But,
theory.
yeah.
It's some, even though you can have like play melodies on the drums, I like as a drummer I would say so. But yeah, I was super intimidated, and so I bought a guitar for like 50 euros, and the amp, it came with an amp and a cable, and I was like, okay, beautiful, and I started learning it at uni, fine, self-taught,
Oh, nice. Yeah,
and now I play the bass also.
yeah, like multi-instrumentalist.
And I'm learning to play the oud, which is like an Arabic lute
Yeah, no way.
with a big, yeah.
Yeah, it's dope, man.
It's pretty,
Yeah.
actually really, really hard because the scales are completely different.
Right, because they use like what do you call them? Like in the West you use like tone, semitone.
Yeah,
They have like microtonal
yeah,
scales,
you
right?
go quarter tone.
Yeah, dude, that's
and,
crazy.
And the neck is fretless, so it's super.
Ooh.
Oh, so you really gotta know where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
But it's okay. I'm getting it down slowly.
Cool, man. That's pretty diverse. I didn't know about the oud.
Yeah, I got it recently.
All right on.
Pretty soon you can start your own man band. Like,
Yeah, in my room. Yeah,
Yeah, why not?
soon enough. Gotta learn how to sing.
Little Tame Impala.
Yeah, Kevin Parker.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of I know you play a lot of funk every time we jam, but
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that's also because I play a lot of funk. So, what would you say like your biggest genre or like drummer inspirations were in like the sound that you play and stuff that you play?
I think I'm just gonna answer that question by like explaining because it's changed a lot over
Sure
time,
thing,
and I
let's
think
go.
everything has really like an impact on what I play today. When I started playing, I was with a teacher, Mr. Nasser was his name, and he taught me theory. I used to play the xylophone with him, even though I went to drum classes, and he was super strict in terms of for example, in drumming we have rudiments, which are like these things that you would play on any surface, and it's just sticking pattern. So
like
there's
paradiddles or
exactly. So
right.
the paradiddle is like the basic one, and it's like right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. There are 40 rudiments total. Paradiddle is just one.
And you learned them all?
I learned most of them, and so I was like, imagine a 7-year-old coming to class, and this teacher, because I wouldn't remember them, he'd look at me and tell me, "What's your name?" And I'm like, "My name is Cyril." He's like, "Okay, so you answer like this for what's your name, and when I tell you next time, play this rudiment, it's the same. Like you gotta know it like your name."
That's intense, man.
Yeah, it was a lot like the teacher in Whiplash.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. So I was 7, crying my eyes out after lesson.
Yeah, shit. I mean, if the trauma doesn't make it stick, then
Yeah.
it will, right?
And I played he would teach me some songs, and to be fair, like today I'm actually kind of grateful because I really have an ear now that pays attention to the details and to these rudiments, and I think I understood the value of technique and of theory before actually going into just learning songs. Afterwards, I switched teachers because he was awful. He was just a brilliant teacher, awful guy. And I started following the Trinity Rock and Pop program of the Cambridge University in London. And then, so I did a lot of rock, jazz, and funk through this. And I finished grade 8.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
I passed with
nice.
distinction. I was like, yeah. I thought I'd failed my final exam, and then when I got the results, I passed, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so a lot of rock in what I learned to play on the drums, a lot of funk. I think a lot of my influences don't necessarily come from what I played on the drums, but what I listened to outside of that.
But that influences what you play also, doesn't it?
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the music that I listened to growing up, I didn't necessarily look to play on the drums. I just listened to them separately. I don't know why I disassociated both things. And so so my mom is a jazz singer.
Oh,
That's
wow.
something that needs to
Nice.
be said. She was a jazz teacher, singing teacher when we lived in Paris. So I always grew up around music. She actually has a couple albums herself that she put out back
No
in the day.
kidding.
Yeah. And So I have a big musical influence from her in terms of, yeah, like the different genres that I listen to. Everything that's rock comes from my drumming. Like nothing
Right.
comes that I know of rock comes from my mom.
So can you give us some names? Because I'm curious.
In terms of rock,
Or also jazz, maybe?
also
Also
jazz.
jazz?
Well, the first jazz musician that I like really, I think, noticed was Chet Baker.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Because Chet Baker. If you
Baker.
don't know Chet Baker, listen to My Funny Valentine. Just that's I think the most beautiful song, maybe. Okay, those are big words, but it's an incredible song. Chet Baker was the first jazz musician that I really listened to, and then there was Ibrahim Malouf, who is
he's good.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
He's a Lebanese trumpeter. I don't know, and he's incredible. His album True Story, Illusions. Sorry, True Story is on the album, but Illusions, just amazing. I recommend for whoever's watching or listening.
Is that the one where he's like clapping his hands on the cover and it's very like colorful, very vibrant?
It's the one with the red cover.
Right.
And I don't know if it's him holding a trumpet or if it's a group of people, but it's a red cover.
Oh, okay. Right.
And in terms of drummers, I think the first band that I really listened to for the drums was AC/DC, which is ironic because their drumming is not
Very
but
simple.
very simple,
straightforward.
exactly. But those were the first songs where I was like, okay, I understand. Like drumming came from a very raw and instinctive place in those songs when I played it.
Maybe that's why it's good to start with it, you know?
Maybe,
Basic
yeah,
raw stage, and
Yeah.
then we'll move up,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I also started guitar with AC/DC,
of course.
and I do not listen to them now. But
Yeah.
I saw like some YouTube video of some riff, like some guy playing, and I was like, I can do that. That's easy enough. And I couldn't because it was a lot harder than I thought.
Yeah.
But I think it's easy to start with like things like rock,
Of
and
course.
then move up because it gives you that fundamental. You got your one,
Mhm.
you got your 2.
Mhm.
What goes on, on these 2 beats, and then it loops that over and over.
Yeah.
Very straightforward.
Yeah.
And
I think I got a bit frustrated. I think when I started learning rock, so when I changed teachers, that's when I got frustrated with rock, with just playing rock, because my other teacher wasn't really teaching me songs, really. He was just kind of teaching me how to play, and like giving me like 2-bar rhythms that I would play, and he was just really focused on the technique and took the music element out of it. So when I started playing rock, I kind of got frustrated because I understood that drumming is a language, in the sense that when I'm speaking to you now, I'm not thinking about each word that I'm saying. I'm just like thinking about an idea that I'm trying to tell you, and I'm just saying it like it's just coming out, right? And so with rock, sometimes I'd be listening, and then I would play by myself, and I was like, okay, there's this thought in the back of my head that I want to say, but I don't have my tools to say it, because rock is so simple, because it's so like bass snare, whatever.
Yeah.
With other genres like jazz, it's so much more versatile and less like there's so many different styles of jazz. Okay, you have different styles of rock, but it's all like more or less a 4x4 beat, and it's much more straightforward. With jazz, jazz and funk and all these other genres, I think you kind of accumulate vocabulary, if I can say that, like a different
Yeah.
pattern or whatever.
I guess that with rock music, it's very driving.
Yeah.
In the sense that it keeps the pace, it keeps the momentum.
Yeah.
It doesn't do much more than that.
No.
But with jazz and funk, you have less rules. It's more free in a way,
Yeah.
and so you can express different ideas, different feels through, by being able to move around certain placements of certain hits on across the 4 beats you have.
Yeah, definitely.
Or more than 4 if you want to
That's very true.
get
Yeah.
atypical. But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's very true. It feels like rock, the drummer kind of like holds things down and keeps the song driving, but with funk there's more feeling to it. I don't know. Not in the sense that there's no feeling in rock. Like I love rock, I still listen to it a lot. But I actually started appreciating it so much more since I've learned to play the guitar. Like before that, Jimi Hendrix, I listened to him a little bit, but I was never like, okay, this is good music. Before I
That's
started
a
really,
bold statement.
I know, right?
Very
but
dangerous.
but I'm before I learned the guitar, I don't feel like I really had the tools to truly appreciate Jimmy's music. And now I'm like a huge fan. There's this drummer called Benny Greb, who is one of my favorite drummers, and he's an artist for himself. He doesn't really play in a band, and he really he uses this analogy of drumming being a language, and it's just, yeah, he speaks through his drums. And not it's a very, I think, cliche and cucu thing to say, like, which is a very, I don't know, stereotypical thing, like I speak through my instrument, but he means it, I think, in the process of I say my words the same way that I would play my drums.
Yeah.
In the sense that you don't think about it, you just kind of do it.
Yeah, because this also relates to what you said before, we were discussing. And, you said that it was a meditative state also that you become when you drum for a while.
Yeah.
It's automatic, you just like you say automatic words, you automatically do it with your full body.
Definitely. And I think in drumming you kind of push that even more because it's four-way coordination between all of your limbs. So not only do you have to, in a sense, not really think about it to kind of just play, but you also have to really think about it to really be fully in your body and fully in control of each limb.
You gotta feel it even more than you think about it, probably.
Yeah,
because,
depending on the genre.
Yeah, sure.
Muscle memory or also
but just proprioception, just having this awareness of all the individual parts of your body working together. Because coming from, again, guitar and bass background, it's so easy to sit down, hunch over, and just look at your fretboard and play. And that's fine, it works. But then when I started learning drums, I was like, dude, I gotta be aware of all my my physical, the space I'm taking up, physically, and what each body part is doing, while still engaging that idea that you'd have of what do I want to convey. And that's where, if you think about it, if I'm really focusing, all right, here's my groove, but I got my 1, 2, 3, 4, you can play it, but it doesn't quite work.
No.
But then when you get to the point where you can really, as you said, just kind of zen out and flow, then it's like speaking.
Exactly.
And so that's really a difference that drums has over other instruments, that it's so physical.
Drums is a workout. When I go play the drums for an hour and a half, I come out sweating, and sometimes I bring a change of clothes because I'm like, I know I'm gonna be fucking sweaty. Sorry, I said that.
I will be
I apologize. I'm gonna be really sweaty after, and every time I play a concert, at the end, it's especially I used to have really long hair.
You're gonna be buff.
Yeah, all the drummers okay, I'm the exception, right? But all the drummers, they're usually always. You look at fucking Neil Peart. Yo, he was so buff. He was such a big guy.
Even the ones who aren't buff, they always have really well-developed forearms.
Well-developed forearms.
Yeah, well-developed forearms.
For
a skinny dude, you got well-developed forearms.
I would say. I don't know. I do have a strong grip.
Speaking of playing live, actually, playing drums, obviously with any instrument, it's not just about playing the instrument, because there are thousands of people who look up guitar tabs and they can play Smoke on the Water, and you ask them to jam in E, or without even going into the theory, just tell them hey, let's play something, and they can't do it. So what's your approach when you're sitting there live jamming, playing with people on a kit? What's going through your mind? Are you
I think this is true for any musician in any instrument, but to jam with other people, you really need to be attentive to what others are playing. It really is a conversation between you and the other players, right? When it comes to drums, as we said earlier, you really have to be focused on your body to play on time, and to all of your limbs. Thank you. Your members, I was gonna say. All of your limbs to be coordinated. And there's a drummer who gave a talk on this platform called Drumeo, and he used the example of a CPU, which we were speaking about last time. So a CPU is the thing on your laptop that is basically your laptop's brain, right? And he says if you picture a CPU in our own brain when you play the drums, the idea is to keep it as low as possible. If it goes to 100%, that means it's maxed out. That means you're only focused on what you're playing, and you're not even listening to what you're playing and to what the others around you are also playing. So this is, I think, what makes the mark of a brilliant drummer or a brilliant musician, is when they can play something pretty complex accurately and still have the ability to listen to what they're doing and to what others are doing, right? So as a drummer, I don't have to tune into a key. I don't have to tune into anything else or like the melody really when I'm jamming. I really kind of like, I'll focus on the bass line first, if there's a bassist, because that's, I don't know, when you, in music in general, like the bass, guitar, and the drums kind of go together, and then the bass and the guitar go together.
I've always seen it as like a bridge. So
Right?
it's connecting the rhythm to the melody. Separately, they, there's no context for each.
Yeah.
And the bass gives both of them context.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
Mhm.
But then the guitar,
Nice.
like, you can have rhythm guitar, and then
Yeah.
in that sense, I also will be actively listening to the guitar. For example, in a riff, I'm gonna listen to if there's like some bits in that guitar riff that feel rhythmic or that I want to accentuate. I don't know any examples right now, but if you think, for example, about Led Zeppelin, John Bonham did that a lot. Like in some of the guitar, in some of the songs, he would tune in to what the guitar is playing instead of the bass, and really like match it rhythmically on the drums.
Yeah, there's a song, I forget which one it was, but he does that and he accents the guitar downbeats with his crash.
Mm-hmm.
And he's playing, I think, in 3/4, and they're playing 4/4.
Mhm.
And so every like 4 beats, it matches up perfectly.
Yeah,
And that just gives it even more of a driving force
Exactly.
towards that that melodic rhythm,
completely.
combining the two. It's really,
Yeah.
really cool.
Because the guitar is like, I think the thing that will stand out the most, and so if you add a kick, like a punch with the drum set, then it really gives a oomph to the song.
Yeah.
I have no other word than oomph to describe it.
I
But
think
so,
that's
yeah,
perfect, huh?
when I'm playing live, I'm listening to what people are saying, but I'm also actively looking at them
Yeah.
and their body language. Because if I see that somebody's like gonna change something or go back to the verse or to the chorus or whatever is the change is happening, I'll see it, not just hear it.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is though, like, even though you do look at people and see what they're doing, and if they give you like a change now kind of look, like
Yeah.
we're gonna end it,
Yeah.
There's that, but there's a lot of unspoken, unseen, just purely,
Yeah.
auditory communication that goes on that you don't register consciously.
No.
But when you're in that like perfect flow state where you're playing and like I'm playing and you're playing and we're playing together, and without any communication, there will be some communication.
Completely.
And that happened last time at the live stream we did,
Yeah.
where we both decided to kind of pick up the pace, ramp up the oomph.
Yeah.
When I was on guitar, you're drumming.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Didn't say a word. I didn't even look at you. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe you were like seeing what I was doing, but I wasn't looking at you, man. And
Yeah.
but you're locked in.
You go
and-
along, yeah.
Yeah.
Communicate with each other.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you
With ears.
yeah, and when you're like consciously focused on what you're doing, you can't get that. But equally,
No.
if you're focused too much on what everyone else is doing, you also can't get it. It's like you undershoot or you overshoot, but you got to be right in that sweet spot in
Yeah.
the middle, and then it flows.
Yeah.
You gotta balance it.
You got to balance it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you learn to play with someone, like we've played live multiple times together, and now I know your style. I kind of understand what your language is. You know?
Likewise.
Yeah, and so I don't need to. Sometimes you'll still give me the look like, okay, we're changing now. You know? But often I feel that you're gonna move on to something
Yeah.
else, and so I can
And-
follow.
Also, I think that's where your proficiency comes in, because as you were saying, you can't let your body automatically play without thinking if you don't know your instrument very well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think
So-
this is the hard. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was wondering, like, what if you mess up?
Live.
Yeah, like, you still communicate, but
Actually, yeah, if I can just, before you answer, man, because on guitar, like, I think John Coltrane, or any note-based instrument, I think it was either Miles Davis or Coltrane, I think it was Davis, but he said, there are no wrong notes, just play it twice and you're fine. Which is true, but on drums
Yeah.
you can't do that. You can't just play, I mean, maybe you can, I don't know, but if I play a wrong note, I can either slide up to a right note or play the same thing twice and make it seem legit.
Yeah.
But how do you play it off if you mess up?
The first time I did a concert,
mm,
I told the first time I did a concert, I played a Bon Jovi song. It was at a bar. I was like 12 or 13, and my teacher had organized it with all the students.
Right, same strict guy.
yeah,
No,
this is
no,
the
no.
me one.
Or,
This is the second one.
okay, cool.
And so at the gig, I'm like halfway through the song, and I drop my stick. and it was the first time that I dropped a stick playing live. Well, it's the first time I played live, you know, and I dropped the stick, and I didn't know that like there was a bag full of sticks right next to me, so I could just take one. So I was like, fuck, and I stopped and I waited. I was like, I don't know what to do. Somebody gave me the stick, and I continued, like, because the track didn't stop, so I just continued. And I think that like after that, my teacher told me like, you learned a really valuable lesson. On drums, if you mess up live, just keep playing, don't stop. You're the tempo, right? In a sense. So if I stop because I fucked up and I don't jump back in like okay, because for example, if I mess up and I stop and I give it a rest and then I hear that the bar's going to come back, if I don't jump back in then it's obvious that I made a mistake.
Right.
It's really hard to like just stop and then jump again. Even all of the professional drummers, when they make a mistake live, they'll keep playing and they'll correct it a little bit after. That's golden rule. Just don't stop playing.
There's this really cool video I saw, like a very short one. You might have seen it too. Of I think it's like a church or like a gospel band playing, and the drummer, like, there's the guy singing up front. He's conducting. He's like giving them the sign of like cut, and the drummer misses it. And he goes on, I think for another like bar and a half maybe. Guy looks back again and tells him like stop, and he goes on for like through the next bar and into half of the one after that, and then he stops. After the second time the guy looks at him, next bar comes around, still halfway into that bar, plays the same like groove that he played in the half of the second bar.
Yeah.
And then the guy looks back at me, he's like, "What are you doing, man?" And he just does it one more time, cuts again, and then throws a fill as they come back in where he's meant to. Whoa. So he went over not only like where he was supposed to stop, but halfway into the bar, stopped and just repeated it. Repeated it with a pause. And brought it in, and it sounded so much better than if you would have just like stopped completely and still come in on the one.
Yeah, there you go.
Which I guess is the same as like that play it twice,
Yeah, a little bit in that sense. Yeah, you really have to. And a lot of the time when I listen to recordings, and I think I'm gonna have this when I listen back to what I'm saying now, I'm gonna be like, should not have said that, or I should have said it differently. When I hear myself, what I've recorded, I'm always like, this is really bad. I don't like what I did. I could have done it cleaner. There's no groove in this, and I beat myself up for it. But I know that when I play live, as long as you keep playing, nobody will hear the mistake.
Yeah.
I've gotten away with so many horrible, atrocious mistakes playing live, and people don't really notice because you keep going. Also, as a drummer, as long as you're not doing a solo, there's very few people looking at you besides musicians.
All right. So what you mentioned earlier about drums being a meditative state that you get into, like the whole body's playing. This is, of course, kind of a spiritual thing, as you could say. How is this? How does drums nourish your soul?
I think for me, in my experience, it's been a meditative tool. I'm gonna say I'm somebody who I'm a lot in my head. I overthink things a lot. I am very empathetic, and like I'm an empath in the sense that I feel very guilty easily when I inhibit somebody's like day or experience of fun. So I keep to myself a lot. I'm not really an introvert, but I still have that. And drumming really was, as we were saying earlier, you really have to be in your body, and it really was because of that. A tool for meditation.
Because it like pulls you out of your own head.
Exactly. Right. Literally pulls me out of my own head. It pulls me out of my own like prison that I put myself in. And because it really taught me the importance of existing in a material world and not just in my head and in emotions and theories and such, right?
So like you're just there in the moment.
Yeah, literally.
Pure like awareness.
Pure, exactly. It
awesome.
Feels very instinctive in
it's
the
also
sense that...
very... Sorry, not to cut you off. Yeah, I'm guessing it's also quite like expressive in the sense that because like you said, it is a language, and words are great for conveying very specific ideas, very like precise things, but music seems to be better for those kind of vague emotions that you can't quite pinpoint, You had a weird day, you don't know if you're sad, angry, what's happening, play some music, and it'll express itself.
Exactly. Often I'll go play the drums, and I'll play something that's like maybe angrier than I had anticipated. Whoa, okay, this needed to come out, and I'm always very surprised. And it's something that's definitely very expressive, playing the drums. people ask me what it feels like often, and for example, in comparing an electric drum kit to an acoustic one, I've always had an acoustic one. I was lucky enough to have an acoustic one.
To be able to have one.
To be able to have one, yeah. And when you play on an acoustic drum kit, every time you hit something, it's like an explosion. It really feels like you're conducting fireworks. It is such a grand I think is the word. When you're playing a groove and then you go into the toms, that's just, it's just a powerful driving force.
Nice.
And this, when you're playing it, there's no way you're in your head. When you're playing that, there is no way. Just because it's so loud and the drum actually explodes, right? So it'll instantly just pull you out. And I think that's why my mom told me play drums also. She was a good
that's really good.
Good call.
Parent.
Awesome, man. That is awesome.
Mostly people, when you meditate, it's people go to the silent place, they go completely silent. Everything gets blocked out, so you go extremely in yourself. But what you're doing is you go extremely in yourself with the opposite of that, so it goes extremely loud, and that's why you can kind of find a silence with sound of silence. Hey.
But then that depends on your definition of meditation. For me, it is getting yourself out of your mind and just being in the moment, right?
It's that flow state.
That is
exactly.
However you get there, it's still and if it happens to be that you get there more easily by physically playing and being kind of more aggressive, that's great, that works.
And it doesn't have to be necessarily aggressive. Sometimes I'll just play rudiments. I'll play the paradiddle for 30 minutes straight with a metronome, and it's
same thing over and over.
Just an even beat. And that's when really you get into meditation, because you get so bored. It is so boring to practice rudiments, but you have to focus. You have to be precise. You have to be on the beat, and so you're really there. There's no way you can let your mind wander off, because that's when you're going to make mistakes, and you don't want that. So you really have to focus and be present. And when you do it for half an hour, afterwards it's the same feeling of having meditated for half an hour. In my experience, I've also tried meditation, and I found it to be the same.
Yeah, nice. No, I definitely get that with music, so I think that's a common thing for everybody, which is why everybody should play music, man. Even if you're not super into it, you should learn some instrument, because it's it's such a primal thing in a way, just to be able to express through a medium other than language.
And I think, to relate to what you were saying earlier, that music has the capability of expressing certain things that words can't.
Yeah.
I think language in itself has its downfalls, and music can fill these gaps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, it's an art form, as music is.
Yeah.
So, man, it's been a pleasure, and for the sake of not going on too long, as we said, we're gonna roll a couple clips of us jamming that we recorded some time back, and of you doing a little drum solo. But actually, before we close, there is one very important question that we ask pretty much everybody.
It's very important.
On the music committee.
Whoa.
It's foundational.
Probably the most important question you'll ever answer in your life.
Yes. Get ready.
So, you ready?
I think so.
Ready.
If you were trapped on a deserted island for the rest of your life, you already know what it is.
I already know what
You've got a magical record player that doesn't need electricity, and you've got 3 records.
Wow.
You're going to listen to it for the rest of your life. Which 3
For the
do
rest
you
of
pick?
my life.
The rest of your life.
of
It's
your
a long
life.
time.
I'm going to say I'm going to have the album Cold Fact by Sixto Rodriguez, because it's a beautiful album that would fit, that has a bit of everything. I'm going to say You're a Synchronicity by The Police, because Stuart Copeland, the drummer, is just incredible. And for my last album, I'm going to say an album by Tina Turner. You gotta have some funk in there, a bit of disco, something. I had a Tina Turner phase.
Nice. Right on, man.
Yeah.
Right on.
Cool. Yeah, thank you very much, man. Good choices.
Thanks,
Good
Shooter
choices.
Man.
Yeah. So anyway, it's been a pleasure, and
I hated it.
yeah, well, I can't wait for you to get out of my room.
Okay. I'm
Okay.
gonna go then.
All right.
Thanks not for having me.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
thanks
don't
for
touch me.
leaving so
Don't touch me.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
I miss him already. was really cool.
Yes, I enjoyed myself
that.
Greatly.
Yeah, it was a cool jam at the end. Awesome solo from Cyril as well.
Yep.
And if you want to hear more from Cyril, he does have a band.
Oh, what's that called now?
They're called Night Shift. They're on Spotify. They have one EP out. I believe it's 3 or 4 songs, but they're really nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more from them. And I'm looking forward to the next episode of our podcast. So, what's the music committee going to talk about that time?
Well, we're not really sure yet what we're going to do for next episode, but we'll announce that shortly. For now, I hope everyone that's listening has enjoyed themselves, because we really enjoyed this episode, and we hope you come to the next one and listen to the next one. We'll be hanging.
This has been the music committee on our very first podcast ever.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thanks for listening.